when you're working with a population like those in a prison, you always have to be ready for the manipulation. Doesn't mean it's always going to occur. Doesn't mean you have to shut things down or get in their face or anything. It just means that it can always be there. And again, you're back to questions. When they say something, let's go deeper into that. And if they're willing to, and they're not just moving it around and diverting, then they're talking with you. If they're moving it around, then they're just appeasing you for whatever they need to do. Like,
Faust, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Jacob, it's a thrill to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, and again, just judging for your profile and all your experiences, I know myself and my audience, we're going to get so much from learning from you and all your trials and how you overcame a lot of stuff and then how you got to your book. And again, I'm really excited and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Great. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah, so just starting off, you being a psychologist, but in general, what really motivated you, inspired you to want to get into the helping profession?
Well, Jacob, for some of us, it's just our nature, and I'm one of those folks. I kind of like what I'm here for. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
a service kind of person, so it was easy for me just to follow that along. The education is there, the experiences have been there,
Hmm.
so it's been a career that spanned over 4 decades. I'm still doing it, and I still love it.
Awesome. Is there any other family members or friends that you know of that are in the helping field too that kind of got you into it? Or yeah.
No, really, not at the time. Now as I have friends, you meet colleagues and so forth. But growing up, I was kind of like and it
Okay.
was kids you came to talk.
Yep, absolutely. Just curious, like, is there anyone that really just, how do I say it? Was it like a mentor to you, especially in graduate school, that really inspired you to go farther in the field?
Well, undergrad there was a professor I had who I remember I was a junior and he
Hmm.
said, you got all this talent. I'd like you to be a teaching assistant with me. And I
Hmm.
said, well, that's great. And he says, yeah, but for graduate school students. And I said, wait a minute, he was like
Wow.
2 or 3 years ahead of me. He said, not, you can do it. It was always that, kind of push to kind of exceed what I thought I could do. And, it was nice to hear. It was that kind of thing where you say, okay, someone else is seeing it, and
Hmm.
it's real. Let's run with it.
So then that's what you could say is not only inspired you, but really put you on the right track to graduate school. Because did you always know you were going to be a psychologist too in the field of mental
Yeah,
health?
I did. Once I got to college, I knew that, you can do so much with a bachelor's degree, and I wanted more training. So, yeah, by that point, I knew where I wanted to go.
And I think back then, all you needed was like a master's degree to become a licensed professional
Correct.
psychologist. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when you were, I guess, done with graduate school and you were a psychologist, uh, did you again know what type of direction you want to get into the field? Because throughout your experience, I know you've worked in prisons, treatment centers, inpatient facilities. Like, what was your early career experience like?
I came out of actually when I was in college. That's when I started to work with deaf kids.
Okay.
I had a relative who was an audiologist, and that's what she did. She worked with deaf kids, and they were kids that were profoundly deaf but had enough residual hearing that with some hearing aids they could get some sounds. So she did that part of things, trained them to speak and hear, and she needed someone to do some behavioral things with them. So as a junior in college, I started doing that, and that went right through till, I'm going to say second year, a year and a half after graduate school. So I was still doing that before I moved on to some other things.
Have you ever seen the movie The Sound of Metal about I'm sorry, the drummer who becomes
Yes,
deaf?
I had.
Very inspirational movie. I don't know how, if through your experience a lot of that is true, or if you ever worked with individuals who later became deaf and how that impacted their mental health.
Absolutely, for sure. And it, when you lose a sense, then it changes the way your brain works. It has to because
Hmm.
it has to compensate. And then you see some behavioral changes in a lot of people. Some can access some very positive energies, and while others can get pulled back into some negative things. So it's always nice, I think, for them to have someone to bounce things off of, just like anyone else,
Hmm.
But again, it does change the way the brain works.
Yeah, again, I personally cannot imagine just going through that. Like I'll play that movie a lot for my group clients and everything, and it's very inspirational. And again, just the loss of something in your life that you're so accustomed to is just very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the brain does compensate, but sometimes you just need some direction to make that happen.
Hmm.
So that's really what I did there. It was and the other thing you do as a therapist, as a person working with those people, is you stop fearing people who have some challenges. We see people in wheelchairs or who have lost limbs and have prosthesis or are deaf or blind, and we don't know how to approach them.
Yeah.
It took that fear right away. So now when I see people who have some challenges, it's just like I just deal with them like anyone else. There's no fear involved. You just go and you don't think of what to say or you don't what you shouldn't say. You just
Hmm.
go and speak to them like you speak to anyone else. So it really changed my approach to people who have some challenges.
I was just going to ask you if you ever found it difficult to work with a particular population where you don't personally have their issue, but again, you try to use empathy as a way to build that rapport with them alongside your therapy.
Yeah, the empathy's there, and then the other thing you do is build a rapport. I mean, once they get to the point, both of you, that there's a trusting relationship there, then that sets the groundwork for everything you're going to do to move forward.
Hmm. Yeah, again, you working with the substance abuse population, like I sometimes go through this too, where I'm not in recovery. And a lot of my clients will find it very difficult to, again, trust me because to them, don't know what it's like to suffer like they have suffered or the experience of being addicted to drugs and alcohol.
You know, I think some of that's overdone. I remember, I think I was out of grad school for about 2, 3 years, and my second job after
Hmm.
I worked in a nursing home, then I worked in an alcohol counseling center, and I was
Hmm.
hired because I was not recovering, and
Okay.
the person that hired me was a recovering person. He said he felt addicted people needed to get out of this stigma where they think the only people that can help them are people who are recovering also. He said just learn everything about it, learn the 12-step program inside and
Hmm.
out. Be willing to go a meeting or two if people will allow that. He happened to be
Hmm.
chairing a meeting, and I just was able to. The group was fine with me just sitting in, and to this day, I still do a lot of counseling with people that are recovering, and I have I have a new book coming out, and the one I'm just starting is actually the Fix Your Addiction Handbook. So,
Okay.
you don't, it's just knowing everything. It's knowing the whole program. If someone comes in and their marriage is falling apart, and you've either never been married or your marriage is sound, that doesn't mean you can't help them.
Right.
So, you certainly can. And with addicted people, if they're going to 12-step meetings and they have sponsors and they're doing all the right things, you present them with a different perspective on
Yeah.
on the sober world that they still have to be part of.
And I also love what you said too about like going to the meetings and showing your support. In a way, it shows them that individuals who are not in recovery still care about them and that are willing to like maybe go outside of the comfort zone in the sense of I've never been to a meeting, but I'm going to go to the meeting to support you. It shows that you really care in a way.
It does that. And the other thing is you learn about the program, the 12-step program. If you really study it, they're
Hmm.
using it to work through addictions, alcoholism, what have you, it's a wonderful program for them. But it's a program even for non-recovering people. I use it every day.
Hmm.
So, not only did I learn the program, I've embraced it. I use it in my life. So when they come in and they say, well, I don't know, I'm just having problems with this, and I might I might look at what they're saying. I say, well, did you surrender? Did you do your fourth step?
Hmm.
Tell me about that fourth step, if you will, and who you're doing it with and how it's happening. And they look at me and they say, well, how do you know all that? And I say,
Yeah,
well, I use it because
right.
it's a great program. Now that changes everything. So if you're willing, you don't have to actually be in recovery from the substance or the behavior, whatever it may be,
Hmm.
as long as you understand their journey and how they're coming through it, and you're willing to use some of those things, that changes things real quickly.
What would you do if you had a client, and I'm more like this, where they come to me and they're like, "Hey, Jake, I tried the 12 steps, NAAA. I don't really relate to it." Would you be more content to say, "Hey, at least you tried"? And would you offer them different types of interventions, or how would you get around that?
I go deeper into what they're doing. They say, okay, I tried the 12 steps. And I say, okay, let's back this down a minute. You went to the meetings. Now, there are
Yeah.
4 or 5 different kinds of meetings. All
Yep.
right. Was it a discussion meeting? Was it a celebration? Was it 12-step meeting, an opening? What was it? I'm going to ask them that. I'm going to ask them if they got numbers from people and they're talking to people. I'm going to ask them if they got a temporary sponsor who was going to teach them through some things.
Yep.
If they're participating, if they're taking on commitments that are part of the meeting, I'm going to ask them all those kinds of
Yeah.
things first. Because all too often, if someone comes back and says, I didn't get anything out of that, they probably didn't put anything in either. They
Yeah.
went, sat at a meeting, kept their mouth shut, and well, you're not going to get much. And I'm going to do some work with that. And again, knowing the program very well and knowing many, many people who are recovering, I might say, well, let me give you a number to call,
Yeah.
and this person could be your temporary sponsor, and they will help you through it.
Yeah.
That's a different story. If I get resistance, usually it's not about the program. It's about sobriety. It's about, them doing the work, them really wanting to stop.
Well, it's like challenging, like where that defensive comes from is just like, okay, why are you so defensive? What is attacking you emotionally in that moment?
Hmm.
I guess the word is deflect. What makes you feel like you need to deflect from something that is being said to you right now?
Yeah. I always, I when someone brings something up, I always go 3 or 4 or 5 questions deep,
Yep.
and that gives me a little more information. I just When they say I don't get anything out of it, I say, well, let's talk about that. Let's look at it a little deeper and figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, that's another thing where I learned as a therapist, like you can't always take things at face value of what people say.
No, they're introducing something initially, and if they were able to work through it, you're probably not hearing it. If
Hmm.
they're bringing it up, then obviously they're not sure. So they're just saying, here, let me put this out there. And then I say, fine, let's run with it.
Yep. Yeah, I love how you said that, where it's just like, did you put in the effort? Because that's what I would say again to my clients, is again, that's fine. Not all interventions are for everyone. I'm a true believer in that. But like you said, what type of effort did you put into it? And I think you made some excellent points where I would even bring that up as a topic for group. It's just like sometimes particular groups don't relate well to you. Like sometimes you'll go to and try to find a home group and maybe you like individuals more your own age, or you like all men's group, all women's group. There's so many variables that determine like how you're gonna like something, but also at the same time, I will challenge them to get out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, you're getting them to just take a half a step out of their comfort zone, just so that
Hmm.
they understand it's there. There's some things they have to do. They're realistic goals that they certainly can do, and then you just want to help uh, point them in the right direction. And then if they're having problems, then there's going to be something that's holding them back, and you go find
Right.
out what it is.
Hmm. That's excellent, excellent point. Now, there's another population that I want to really ask you about through your experience, and this is something where I'm diving into now. Me personally, I did my thesis on veterans with PTSD with as well as substance use disorders. So, through your time working at the prison, were you like considered a prison psychologist then?
Yeah, as part of the treatment staff, was hired initially to do drug and alcohol
Okay.
counseling. And then if you work in a prison, often particularly smaller prisons, you have a tendency to wear many hats. So then you do some intakes, and you're sitting in on furlough meeting, applications, and you're doing the counseling, and you're doing all different kinds of things, all different populations.
So can I ask you roughly what percentage of individuals did you work with at the prison who also, let's just say, had some trauma as well as substance abuse issues as well?
Well, almost all have trauma. Substance abuse at the time was about 80% of the
Yeah.
people in the jail. It's always high. Um, drugs and alcohol. Um, but there's always trauma. There's something that precedes the substance abuse typically.
Hmm.
Not always, but it may be abuse, it may be neglect, it may be foster homes, all that type of thing. You get a lot of that in a jail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just wondering, when it came to your therapeutic interventions, were they somewhat similar to, let's just say, the general population, people with substance use disorders, or did you have to like work it a little differently with the prison population combined with the substance use? Did you have to tinker anything when you're in your skills and your counseling skills?
Well, the prison is a very eclectic population. You may
Mhm.
get people that are really good homes that just made mistakes. You get a lot of street people, but
Yep.
I don't mean people that only live on the street. I mean people who have homes and apartments and what have you, but their life is street based. So they're street smart people, and they're a little more aggressive, and they're a little more savvy about how the street works. So again, it's one of those things where, just like as I was mentioning before, as I'm counseling addicts, if I'm going to work in a jail, then I better understand the street. I better
Yep.
understand how to talk to these people, because if they think I don't know the street, they're not going to trust me. They're going to think I'm some kind of fool, and they'll do everything in their power to manipulate and get around that. But once they realize I understand it, not only do they tone that down a bit,
Yeah.
there's a little more trust to someone who can relate, and a willingness to talk a little more, because they'll assume I'm not going to give them some kind of white collar junk that
Okay.
they can't use.
Okay. Could we also flip it a little bit where let's just say there's a new therapist and they're being respectful, but they just don't know. So they just have the vulnerability just to ask the client, hey, what's the conditions like? What's the street like, to some degree, where you're vulnerable, but you're attempting to, again, learn more about their culture in a sense.
Well, I think if you're going in and you don't have that type of
Yeah.
then you want to be able to say, look, I don't. The first thing, if you're working in a prison population, is you're not showing weakness. You're not showing that much vulnerability.
Okay.
Not only will some of them manipulate and take advantage of it,
Yep.
they don't know how to trust it. Okay, and a lot of the people who have been part of their arrest or foster homes or the authority figures
Yeah.
they could not trust, and many of them were not trustworthy. So the advice is simply to say, look, I don't know the street. I'll help you any way I can. I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you. We'll be straightforward. You want to tell me whatever you want to tell me, and I'll see what I can help you with. And
Hmm.
they're usually pretty good about that.
Right. Yep. Yeah, just like in the treatment center too, like they'll use the word like manipulation and whatnot, and you feel like you want to say that they're like individuals are not going to be like that, because if they're there for the right reasons. Where if not, they're just like going back to their childhood behavior, where even little kids and toddlers learn how to manipulate their parents into getting something. It's like a goal-oriented behavior in a sense.
Yeah, we are what we're brought up with, and in many homes, that's just parents are absent. The parents themselves may be suffering with substance abuse or other emotional issues. So kids learn what they learn. But just like you can look and say, "Gee, was there a person in my past who helped me?" As I mentioned that one professor, I might be that person who said, "Wait a minute."
Right.
You're a good person. Let's look at some of the good stuff for a change. And who said that to them at this point, When you're working with a population like those in the prison, you always have to be ready for the manipulation. Doesn't mean it's always going to occur. Doesn't mean you have to shut things down or get in their face or anything. It just means that it can always be there. And again, you're back to questions. When they say
Yeah.
something, let's go deeper into that. And if they're willing to, and they're not just moving it around and diverting, then they're talking with you. If they're moving it around, then they're just appeasing you for whatever they need to do. Like, I'm in this jail and I have to talk to you because if I
Yeah.
don't, when parole time comes, I have a problem. That's
Yep.
all part of it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like taking things at face value too when it comes to, I don't want to say not believing in the client or the individual in prison, but like they could say, oh yeah, things are going good, A, B, C, and D, yet their behaviors aren't necessarily showing that. That's why I think where you said you gotta dig deeper to overcome, let's say, the manipulation or the false, like, or the lies or the not the whole truths.
Yeah, I would simply say, look, you're in jail, and for whatever reason, you've got to be sitting here with me. You got two options. You can
Yeah.
say, okay, fine. Hey, I did it. I'm done. Get out of my face.
Yep.
Or you can say, hey, you know what? I'll test it, see where it goes. And I said, good, test me, see where I go. If you like it,
Hmm.
come back. If you don't, don't. Usually they would come back. You're not putting any pressure on them. I don't want anything from them. I'm gonna say, let's talk about what you got. And they're
Yep.
gonna say, what's gonna go in your report? And I say, whatever you think you want to work on. It's you have the control.
No, it's so interesting that you brought that up because yeah, life isn't perfect. Nobody has a perfect life. Where there'll be times where be doing group and I'll be doing like a trauma exercise, especially about like family interventions, family systems. And a lot of the clients, or not a lot, but a portion of them will be like, oh yeah, I had my childhood was great. I had no abuse. It was fine. I just made mistakes. And it's just like nobody had a perfect childhood. Not even probably like the happiest person in the world. So it's just like, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to get away from?
And they often won't answer questions much about their childhood unless they're trying to explain away behaviors.
Hmm.
Prison population doesn't always go deep into childhood.
Right.
Uh, they're going to talk about behaviors now. What my goal with them was just to give them a person they could trust. And then if they want to open up, that's great. Typically in their lives, they didn't have someone to trust.
Hmm.
So if I could be that person, hey, I can trust this guy. He's not going to burn me. He's not going to put me in a position where he's going to tell the world all about me, or he's going to
Right.
jeopardize my ability to move through the system. They can come in, that's fine. The trust means that they're not trying to manipulate or they're not trying to lie their way through something. Just a conversation. If some days
Hmm.
they came in and we talked about sports or we talked about something but they left and smiled, and then next
Yeah.
time we got them and I said, yeah, let's talk about that thing. And then they did that. I was okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's another interesting point too about not being, let's say, a pushover or whatnot. Like we have a family friend named Joe who's a former CEO at a prison, a correctional officer. And I think he had a really good strategy or mentality of like he's somewhat strict, but he wasn't a completely anal or an asshole to the prisoners. He would like give them a little bit of a leash, but know at the same time, hey, you can't push me around. I'll work with you a little bit, but you got to meet me halfway.
The key, Jacob, to remember about jail is that when that inmate, if you will, comes into your office, they are professionals at sizing people up.
Yep.
That's a survival skill they had to have. So in
Yep.
the first 5 minutes, they're going to test you and see how you respond, and they're going to size you up,
Yep.
and you'll be surprised at how accurate they are in their
Yes.
assessment. So that's why I say, we'll play the game. Just be honest. This is where it is. I am here to help you if you want it.
Yep.
And if you don't, I remember counseling an 18-year-old who came in for drug sales. And, we had him about 6 months and they were talking about getting him a furlough and maybe work
Hmm.
release, a job. And 18, we were to get him a job at a McDonald's or a
Okay.
factory. Each of the time he would have made minimum wage. He looked at me and kind of laughed and said, why would I do that? I sell drugs for a living. I made $2,000 one morning last week.
Wow,
You want
yeah.
me to work 40 hours a week for 200? Why
Right.
in the world? And so, so what, it's
Yep.
logical on there, and their logic is a bit different. I said, well, the risk of it. He says, okay, now I'm in 6 months, but I know where I got about eight or $9,000 buried, and I'll get out. And he said, then that was just whatever he said, a couple of weeks worth of work. He said, bottom line is once I'm and quote, once I move up with the primary dealer, I might be
Yeah.
making $6,000, $7,000 a week.
Yep.
So you're telling, so there's a whole different learning curve there. And they're gonna, and they have to know how to size people up, because on the
Yeah.
street, that is a matter of life and death.
Yep. Yeah, I love that you said that. It's funny. So I feel like a lot of that has to do with like also like boundary setting. Like me as a grad student, I did the exact same thing. I was taking an online class, and you could say I was lazy, but I wanted to know how much I could get away with this professor. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not proud of it. I just did half-ass work. I did half-ass work to see if this teacher will just roll over and just give me an A. Nope. Nope, not the case. I think my first paper I got like a D or maybe like a C minus, and I was like, oh shit, okay. I didn't say this to him, but I'm like, my bad, professor, my bad. I'll start doing better work. And he said, that's not, he pretty much told me like that's not gonna fly here. I'm like, all right, sorry, apologize.
Yeah. And again, these people will size everything up. They'll be accurate.
Hmm. See,
And again, you may have some things to lose. You may have lost a class or some of your master's work. They don't see themselves as having a whole lot to lose.
hmm
By the time they're mid-20s, they might have been in and out of jail 4 or 5 times.
hmm
It becomes part of the life. They know that. They go out and make a ton of money, put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Come in, if they're using, they start getting skinny, and their health starts to fail. They come into jail. We put them back together, and then they go back out and they start the process again. So it's part of the way they live.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's funny going back to like the whole boundary setting. I think my style is a little bit different where I don't care what the client is or where they came from. I'm always going to be myself in a professional sense until, okay, they may think I'm a pushover, but again, once they cross my line, I'm going to let them know, like, hey, that's not okay. You're not going to be doing that. So again, I feel like you just, as a professional, need to know where your line is and set that boundary.
And I
And we're all
remember,
different.
and I remember now when people come in the office, I know exactly where I stand,
Yep.
and it allows me to quickly determine where they are. And once you set up that initial rapport, clients will quickly attach themselves to you.
Yep.
And I still do most of my work in my office. I mean, I'll go online for some people if I have to. It's not my preferred way of doing things, but
Hmm.
they when they walk in, I'm going to quickly let them know that they're loved and respected in my office, and that we're going to do some things to help them change their life around. And once people get that and realize it's safe and they can open up a little bit, that's why they came to you. So,
Yes.
then they respond to that.
Yep. Another aspect that I want to get into is this can go with like the prison population, the SUDS population, but a lot of the issues I find my clients going through is that yes, they're back, they're outside of jail, outside of prison, but now it hits them that they have to live a new life, get a solid job, not the drug life. But again, the reality is like they're not, I don't know if it's a prestige, but they're not a part of the higher class anymore, where they're not making three, $4,000 or $2,000 a day. They have to maybe get a job at McDonald's for a little bit just to get their feet on the ground. And a lot of my clients struggle with that.
Well, they will struggle with that. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things, there's the money part, they're getting out, they don't have much. There's
Yes.
a trust factor about that. And then there's authority and there's accountability, and they never had to embrace those concepts. So, it's a slow process for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I got another really cool question to ask you. And again, it's tough because I'm not going to ask you like what was your favorite job throughout this field, but was there ever a job or a population that you worked with that like challenged you, but also made you a better therapist, really inspired you to do things differently and shined a lot of light on you?
They all had their own kind of qualities that, I could
Hmm.
embrace and learn from. And that's what I always kept in my mind. It's a one person situation, one person at a time. And they're going to bring their own special characteristics, their own personality traits into the office. So I've always just said, let's go one at a time and learn from that particular person, rather than say, well, this population taught me this and this one taught, because really it's the population is made up of individuals. So I just always focus on one session at a time.
Hmm. It's funny. I don't want to get too far off topic, but I feel like a lot has to do with your coworkers as well. I know that's not like really a popular topic, but I also feel, and I make this argument a lot, that this field is hard enough as it is, but you need to learn to work together as a team better. And sometimes we don't have the best management, the best owners, treatment directors. Do you have any thoughts towards that, like collaborating together?
For me, when I worked in places like the prison or some
Hmm.
of the clinics, I really didn't, they let me do what I wanted to do. Um,
Okay.
and I really didn't have that. And then by the time I was out of school probably 10 years, I went into private practice. So I've been really, for the last 37 or 8 years, I've been doing things my way every day. So, you know, I've never had that. I know that is a problem, depending on uh, who the upper management is and how much treatment experience they
Yeah.
have. And a lot of places are designed to make money, I mean, or you get a county office where there's a whole lot of turnover.
Yeah.
So, unless you're doing things yourself, you're always subject to whatever uh, the vocational environment has to offer.
It's funny. I was listening to this podcast about like 10 reasons why you shouldn't get into private practice, and one of them said loneliness. And again, I don't know if you ever experienced loneliness, but I'm just thinking like, my God. And again, I'm not solely talking about the place I'm at now, but in the past, it's like 80, 90% of my stress a lot of times is my coworkers. So I'm good being lonely. I'm good being lonely for a while.
Yeah, no, I experienced that. And again, when you're doing things in the office, primarily one-on-one, you're always touching someone and you're, intellectually and emotionally, and you're always, had that whole reciprocity going on. So that's never been an issue. Plus, if your family life and social life is where it needs to be, it really doesn't matter. I think people today that are counseling online are going to be more susceptible to that because many of them are not leaving their homes for
Yeah.
long periods of time. And you're talking into a machine, so the person on the other end doesn't have that live feature that
Hmm.
that you get in the office. So I'd be more concerned about folks that are doing that with this model now.
Yeah, and I think you made an excellent point about therapist self-care and how important it is not just for you, your family, but again, it also I feel like plays a significant role in how you apply care to your clients.
Well, there's no doubt about that. You take care of yourself first, and I always preach about taking care of your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit, although there's a balance there and you try to maintain that. And a lot of therapists don't, you know, it depends on how invested you are in this way of life. I always felt that I am what I teach.
Hmm.
So, if they're going to ask me questions about mental health and about physical health, I should be able, to the best of my abilities, be a person who embodies those characteristics.
So let me ask you a question, and this is a big one when it comes to the ethics. What do you think is like the most significant thing that was drilled into you in grad school about ethics working with clients?
Well, either one, there are two is keep things confidential, and the other one is don't cross boundaries.
So it's hilarious because, well, not a hilarious situation, but my last episode, we're talking about like therapists having sex with their clients. And in grad school, we're like, well, what the hell? Of course you don't have sex with your clients. It's like insane to think about that, but then therapists still do it. So I also think that correlates into like self-care as well as a therapist, among some other mental health issues, of course. But
Yeah,
so,
and there are a lot of people who will cross that boundary, and the practice becomes, the client becomes part of the social life, and
yep.
there are a lot of red flags that you see, or that but the client is someone to be helped, and then I always say when they leave, then I'm done with that client. The next one is up, and that's the way it needs to be. But it's all about how you emotionally sound you are yourself.
Hmm.
You got to take care of you, and if there's some problems, we therapists have a tendency to not get into counseling. We're supposed to be the one with the answers, but every now and then, if you know, you have something that you need to talk about, you should be able to do that, whether it's with your spouse. I always had many colleagues that we could bounce stuff off. Hey,
Hmm.
well, this just popped up. What do you think about this? Or, this is going on at home. We could do that kind of thing. So you had the social part of your life, you had your professional, but then you had colleagues where you could
Yep.
get a little more personal kind of thing, and then it stayed there.
Yep. Yeah, excellent. Just boundaries. There you go. Also, now I'm just kind of curious too, through your experience, are you still in private practice right now then, I assume?
Am I still in? Yes.
What made you motivated to write a book in the first place?
Well, I've been at the practice, geez, pushing 40 years, late 30s, 36, 37 years. And I said, I've got all these things that I've learned, that these processes, these things that I've been using in my counseling. I thought I'd put them into a book. So it's just the processing style, the counseling style I use. I just turned
Mhm.
it into a book in the Fix Yourself Handbook. That was the first one. It came out in 2019. And since that time, with 4 decades, there's enough expertise. The second book was on anxiety. The third was depression. I just am getting ready to publish the Fix Your Anger Handbook, and
Okay.
the Fix Your Addiction Handbook is in in the writing stages now. So it'll be 5 books deep. So it's a series that I'm writing. It's just about,
Okay.
you have the knowledge, and as you start winding down in your career, you say, well, now let me you know look at doing things just a little bit differently. So now, I'm helping people on a much larger scale.
Excellent. Excellent. So what advice would you give someone who is thinking about writing a book? Like for you, what was the most difficult part actually trying to do it? Was it just trying to obtain all the knowledge and put it in the piece of paper, or hiring writers or editors, or how does this all
Uh,
work?
the knowledge was there. I knew what I wanted to do, but I tell people, don't just delve in and start writing a book. Take some time and understand the publishing business,
Okay.
because whether you like it or not, you're getting into a business, and you can do things like many people do. They will write the book, um, get somebody to help them set up a cover, and then upload it to Amazon. Okay, I wrote a book and it's on Amazon, but you can sell 20 copies to your friends and your family. If you're going to do this and you really want to learn how to publicize and market your book, take a year off. Talk to people who have published. Talk to publishers, publicists, copy editors, agents. All those people understand what the business is all about. Because quite frankly, there is writing, and then there's writing for publication.
Mhm.
And you can just write your book and get an AI editor, and they show
Yep.
you all the mistakes are, but then someone reads your book and said, I'm not sure what you meant by this.
Mhm.
Learn the business, for like anything else. So you're going to counsel people. You went to school to learn how to counsel, learn the whole counseling business. Writing for publication is just another form, another life change where you want to learn about it first.
Mhm.
Then, when I write, I know what the topic is. I've researched everything, so I know where I want it to be. Then I set up an outline, and it goes chapter by chapter with everything that
Excellent.
chapter is going to contain. Then I follow my outline and write my book.
Okay. That's really
Then
cool.
after I'm done and I edit it, then it goes to a copy editor, and she takes it apart and looks at it. And if there's some mistakes, I'll get it back with that. Or this paragraph, maybe we need to condense, or that one, I wasn't sure what you said here. Or in paragraph 2, you said this, but this is a little slightly different here.
Yeah.
So she catches all those things, and that'll come back to me. I'll edit it again. It goes to an illustrator who now is going to do all the cover
Yeah.
designs and all, and then set up the whole inside of the book. And then when they're done, it comes back to me again, and then we publish.
Okay.
So it's a process.
Patience. You're gonna probably need a lot of patience throughout that process.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And again, those are all great things, especially for me. I'm very impatient, so that's one thing. Again, admitting that I'm not perfect at that, that I'm powerless maybe over my patience, as you were explaining earlier. And yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So since you've been in the field for 4 decades, I really want to ask you from like roughly like when you started in behavioral health field to like now, and I know this is a broad question, are you content or happy of where this field is going, like the mental health addiction, or do you think there's some major holes that the government needs to try to help us out in, our communities need to help mental health therapists out, and so forth?
Well, there are a number of things. I think that we've gone online, and I've always been a person that says if we make changes in this field, they should be client-centered changes, things that are
Yep.
designed specifically to help the client. Online counseling was never designed to help
Yep.
to be client-centered. This is counselor-centered.
Yep.
It's easier for me. I make more money. I can get my business at home, and that comes off my taxes, and I don't have to travel, and it's
Yep.
so easy. This was all about the therapist. It was never about the client. So that
Hmm.
concerns me. And now we have tremendous amounts of people who are saying, I want to get help, but they wait 4 months, 5 months, six
Yeah.
months. My people, when they call me, they get in either that week or the next week. And even if I have to just say, let me get you in, and then I can't say it's going to be the same time every week because
Yep.
I may move you around a while, but we'll eventually get to that point. We're not doing things for the client anymore. Even, you know, people are giving time limits. You can only spend this much time, then you got to get that person out and get the next person in. Not everybody arrives at a place in a session where they can open up at the same time. Everyone's a little bit different. So, yeah, I have some concerns with where it's going. We're
Yep.
doing things too fast. We're doing things where the client is simply not at the center of the approach.
Yeah, do you think a lot of that has to do with like COVID and when that all started, people were
Well,
kind
it
of
helped
forced to,
a lot of it, that accelerated it that much more.
yep,
But again, we really have to uh, keep the client as the primary focus of what we do. And we're not, the whole medical model is changing. It's not, we're going fast. We're getting them in and we're getting them out, and that's scary. But
yeah, it just in all honesty, so I have my private practice, but I completely agree with you where I don't like doing online therapy. I just can't afford a building yet, but once I do, I'm gonna do that in person because I just love the person to person or group connection. However, if they're like super far away or if it's snowing or if it's like they're really sick or emergencies, then yes, I'll offer a hybrid option for a limited time only, not every time and so forth. So, yeah. And then obviously you have insurance companies too with their reimbursement rates. And like what you mentioned, like time, for obviously 45 minutes, you get a certain amount, and then 60, you get a little bit more. But again, it's just not high enough reimbursement rates here in Minnesota. I'm not sure what it's like in Pennsylvania or whatnot, but
well, that's another thing that online people are going to have to look at. Typically the rates that the insurance companies pay are based upon going into an office.
really,
Yeah,
okay,
insurance companies don't just throw money out. Now, eventually, what I see happening is they'll look at this and say, well, these people are not paying rents and mortgages anymore. They're not traveling. They don't have insurances on their building they have to do. There's no utilities. And, that was always factored into this whole
okay.
situation. And I don't know that insurance companies are going to continue. If I'm correct, as we go forward, online counseling is probably going to see some drops in what the insurance companies do. I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised to see that happen. I'm
Very
not
interesting.
predicting it, but I wouldn't surprise me if they do.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. That's why like a lot of therapists over here, and I'm sure over there too, are just saying like, screw insurance. I'm just gonna do private pay. It's a lot easier that way.
Hmm.
Oh, oh yeah.
Yeah, if
Well,
people can pay, then that's great. Then
Yep. Well, man, Foss, it's been such a great and amazing pleasure having you on the show. And this is where the portion where I like to ask my guests like yourself about goals. And I know you're into writing books and whatnot, but let's just say in the next 5 years or so, do you have any other additional goals that you want to try to accomplish in your profession?
No, I'm doing the books. I'm doing a lot of interviews. Those interviews are things like we're doing today. There's television. I've done a lot of television and live radio and things. So, we're just going to push the program forward as far as it's
Okay.
capable of going, and we'll see, how big it can get. That's what we're doing at this point. We get, like I said, when you study it and you learn what to do, then you're talking publicists are in there and they're getting jobs for you. Agents are helping you with the publishing process. So you have this whole team of people. I've got five
Okay.
or six people that work. So we're going to see how far we push it. And it's really been taking off in the last year. And I think by the end of this year, I'll probably have done 450 interviews. And
Oh, wow.
so,
Excellent.
that type of thing where you just keep pushing it. And it kind of takes on a life of its own. And then you just plug in and go. So we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You have my full support for sure. Um, Now, if any of my audience members want to get a hold of you, is there a particular website or email they could use to send you a message?
Yeah, just go to my website. It's my name, faustruggiero.com. Everything about me and the books and what I'm doing is there, and there's a contact link.
Okay. All right, and I'll make sure I get that on the show notes, so it will be one click away for all of you. Well, again, Foss, thank you so much for being on my show. I greatly appreciate it. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot from you, and it was very interesting and awesome.
I think it's been a pleasure to spending time with you. So, let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely, that'd be a lot of fun. I again want to thank Foss for an awesome and amazing episode. It's very much appreciated, and I had a great time. I just want to thank all of my listeners for your support, and just to inform everyone that the information expressed in this episode was not meant to be taken as therapeutic advice. If you do find yourself struggling with any type of mental health or addiction issues, please seek the care of a medical doctor or a licensed mental health therapist. And if anyone has any further questions for me, you can reach me at my email address, behaviorhealthintegration121@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jacob Minig, where you will find more educational posts on psychotherapy, trauma, and addiction. And finally, you can follow me on my website, which is behaviorhealthintegration.org. I also want to inform everyone that there is a great new device out there called Camigo. It's a breathing device meant to control and manage your breathing rates and the depth of your breathing as you inhale and exhale to again help relieve any type of anxiety and stress-like symptoms. And if you do put the BHI podcast into the promo code, you get $30 off this amazing device. It is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and you will not be disappointed. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a good day. Bye.